Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight I am prepping up some sourdough pizzas for tomorrow night when I'm out of town for my husband to cook up for the kids. And then we're going to do one more stretch and fold on our sourdough bread, and we'll add some basil inclusion. So let's get to work on our sourdough crust for our pizzas. We're doing 6 deep dish pizzas here. And I'm going to give a drizzle of olive oil in each one of my deep dish pans. And this is going to help get a nice kind of crispy crust on it. And then I'm just going to use a paper towel, and we're just going to kind of spread the olive oil all the way around on our pan. And again, these are actually, I've had these forever, but they're deep dish pizza pans from Williams and Sonoma from like 20 years ago. I use them for cakes all the time too, because they make a perfect mini cake, but they're perfect also for pizzas. Okay, so we've got all of them coated with nice and oil. That's going to give a nice kind of crisp crust on them when they bake up. And then I have my sourdough pizza crust that I made with sourdough starter. I used 500 grams of bread flour in here, and 400 grams of active starter, 300 grams of water, 50 grams of honey, and 50 grams of oil, and then a bit of salt to make my dough here. And it's been sitting on the counter. We've done our stretches and folds. And now we're going to just give it a nice coating of flour, and then we're going to make it out into 6 pizza crusts for our deep dish pizzas. So I'm going to cut it, each one, my big dough here, in half. And then we're going to cut each one into thirds. So I have kind of a good chunk for each pizza. But pretty simple. I like to do a nice kind of coat of flour on it just because it's a little sticky at first, but it's actually going to proof a little bit in the fridge with our toppings on, and then we'll just pop it in the oven tomorrow at 450 for about 10 minutes. We're going to stretch all of them around nice like this, and then we're going to put it in our deep dish pan. Make sure it's all the way stretched out. Perfect. And then we're going to go with our next bit of dough and just giving it a little stretch with it. You don't have to do the fancy like spins. I can't do that. I'm not that talented. But we're going to add it into our next little deep dish here. And then we're just going to spread it around to all of the edges. There we go. Perfect. And it will break up. It will be a thicker crust, but not so thick that, things, but it'll be about a good crust on it. Perfect. Now let's get our next piece of sourdough going up, just kind of pinching it around to make it into its nice kind of circle form. Now you could also use a cookie sheet if you wanted to. You could stretch it out on a cookie sheet or a pizza stone. But we want to be able to save these. So what I'm doing them in these tins, and then we can cover them with some plastic wrap, and they'll be ready to go tomorrow. Perfect. 3 more. Just pinching around, stretching it out. And the nice part about it is once we assemble the pizzas here, and we put our sauce on it and our cheese on it, we'll pop them in the fridge, and it will kind of do the cold proof. Kind of when you're making a sourdough bread, you do that nice cold proof, which will give it a little pop too when you bake it up. There we go. Just stretching it out. And again, perfect. And you just kind of give it a little pinch and kind of twist it when you go around, a little bit of a pull. You don't have to roll it out or anything like that. There we go. Put it in here. Perfect. Excellent. And now for our last one. And then we're going to assemble our pizzas. We're just doing a couple pepperoni and mainly cheese because that's what the little ones like. Give it a nice stretch around. And I will say that's one thing that's really nice about our sourdough pizza crust. If you've never worked with it, it has a great elasticity to it. And it stretches and pulls really well. It doesn't break that often, but it's just great for making pizzas. Okay. So we've got our doughs in here. Just get this to the side. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash, and then we are going to assemble our pizzas. Okay. Perfect. Now I am using just a basic marinara sauce. This is Rayo's marinara. I love their marinara sauce. So this is their pizza one, which is a little bit thicker than their marinara. And what you're going to do is you're going to put about a teaspoon or so in here, and you're just going to spread it around. You don't need to put a whole bunch in. A little bit of pizza sauce goes a long way. And then what I actually like to do is dip my pizza in extra sauce, but not put it on there, because if you put too much sauce on, it will be soupy. So just a nice, about a spoon, one like tablespoon per pizza here. And we're going to spread it around all the way to the edges, because again, this is like a deep dish, so you don't need to leave room for a crust. You're just going to spread it all the way around. Perfect. And I will say this jar will have just a little bit left over, which will be perfect for dipping in our pizza slices in. There we go. And we'll spread it all the way around. And now we're going to make 2 pepperoni. And when I do pepperoni, I like to do pepperoni in 2 layers. I do a layer on the bottom, then we do cheese, and then I do a layer on top. So you get like pepperoni bites in every piece. There we go. So some good old Hormel pepperoni. Can't beat that. We're going to just make a full layer around, all the way around. And then we're going to go in the middle. So you will not be shy of any pepperoni. So you want to just make sure it completely covers the whole bottom layer, because you can never have enough pepperoni on a pizza. It's like there's the shakaroni or something like that from Papa John's that has like all like the multiple layers of pepperoni on it. There you go. So we've got our first layer. Now we're just going to use mozzarella cheese, and I'm going to put mozzarella cheese on all of them. And then our pepperoni ones, we'll do a nice second layer of pepperoni. So we've got our layer of mozzarella, and it's just a nice big handful for each one. Perfect. And a little bit more on that one. You want to have it, you don't want to have it so thick, but you want enough to kind of cover the whole sauce where it's just a little bit's kind of peeking through. There. And perfect. So we've got our cheese assembled. Now for our 2 pepperonis, I'm going to add a little bit more pepperoni. That way you know for sure this is pepperoni. Perfect. So just kind of like a little pepperoni flour on top. You don't have to do quite as much as the first layer, but enough on there. You want the cheese to be able to bubble up nicely through it as well. Okay, so now our pizzas are done, and simply what we're gonna do is, and this is, I'm gonna show you with one and then I'll do this later, but all you are is gonna take a bit of plastic wrap, You're going to put it over the top of it, seal it, put it in your fridge, and then the next day, so tomorrow night when I'm out of town, my husband pop this in the oven at 450 degrees, and he can bake for about 10 minutes, and it will get nice and crispy crust on the bottom, and you'll have your gooey and delicious cheese. Now let's go to our sourdoughs over here that we're prepping up. So this is our basic one, which we're just going to do our last stretch and fold for. So if you're not used to or have never done sourdough before, after you make the dough, you do a series of stretch and folds about every 30 minutes. So we're going to do our last stretch and fold. So where you stretch it and fold it down. And the point of the stretch and fold is this helps build the gluten in your bread, which is going to give you a really great crumb on it. So we're going to do our stretches and folds. And then I'll let it sit on the counter for a little bit longer to finish up its kind of bulk proof. And then we'll put it in the fridge after we laminate it and shape it. Now, our second loaf is our pesto loaf, where we added in some pesto. Now we're going to add an inclusion of fresh basil. So I have a bunch of fresh basil here. I'm going to pull off all the leaves because you don't want any of your stems in here. And then we're going to mince it up. We're going to use about a cup of fresh basil. So I'm just going to pull these leaves on here. So we used about 2 tablespoons of pesto in our bread. And now we're going to do an inclusion of chopped up fresh basil. So you really get that nice basil bite in every, bit of your sourdough with a mellow pesto undertones. So let's almost at about a cup. Let's grab a few more. So this is about a cup of fresh basil. And now I'm just going to go with my knife and we're going to just mince it up pretty small because you don't want to have any huge pieces of leaves in your bread. We'll cut through here, mincing it up really nice. Now, when you cook it, the basil will wilt down just like with spinach. But again, you don't want to have a really big stringy piece in there. So make sure you give it a good chop. Perfect. Okay. So now we're going to do our stretch and folds on here, but I'm going to take it out so I can really incorporate this inclusion. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to literally put it down on all of this basil. We're going to flip our cutting board over. And now we're going to do these stretches and folds to incorporate them. So we're going to stretch it up and fold. Stretch and fold. And there you go. And I will say sourdough is always a little bit sticky to work with. Now, if you don't like the stickiness of it, here's a trick you can do. You just get your hands a little bit wet, like this. A lot of people keep a bowl of water, and you see when you grab it, it won't stick to you. I don't mind getting my hands sticky, but if you don't like it, you just get your hands a little bit wet, or you can also do it with the flour. So we're doing our stretches and folds here. And I'm just making sure I'm really getting this inclusion worked up in here. And then we've got it right here. And they're going to now proof on the counter for about another hour or so. And then we will laminate them and shape them into, one will shape into a loaf, one will shape into a round or a bowl, and put it in our fridge. And we're going to bake it up tomorrow after it's been in the fridge for about 12 hours. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tonight we prepped some pizzas for tomorrow night and our bread that we're going to bake up at lunch tomorrow. Thank you again for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.